Not really. But I respect what he's done.
I think he called you a dosser.
Yeah.
Sense got the outcome that most people tuning into this fight were here for, which was to see Jake Paul get knocked out. It was the...
You deserve it. It's such a shame that the guy decided to retire. He should grow a backbone.
The drama surrounding this moment did not fade when Anthony Joshua's hand was raised. Storm of reactions, rivalries reignited, and long-simmering questions about boxing's future crashing into the present. Joshua stood in the aftermath not just as the winner of a spectacle, but as a reminder of the brutal hierarchy that still governs the heavyweight division. Jake Paul's jaw was broken, his mouthguard displaced, and the illusion that preparation alone can erase decades of elite experience was shattered in front of millions watching worldwide. Joshua's words afterward carried a sharp edge, not born of malice but of certainty. He had warned what would happen. He had promised punishment, and while it did not come as quickly as some expected, it came all the same. There was no gloating in the performance itself.
The worst version of a Jake Paul knockout loss that we could have asked for. There isn't some sort of highlight reel moments like the...
Only methodical pressure and an eventual finish that underlined the gap between a global influencer chasing legitimacy and a former unified heavyweight champion who has lived at the sport's highest level. Joshua acknowledged Paul's spirit, even credited his resilience. But the underlying message was unavoidable. Spirit does not close distance. Spirit does not negate power. Spirit does not replace years forged in championship fights. As the dust settled, Tyson Fury wasted no time inserting himself into the narrative. This was never just about Jake Paul. For Fury, Joshua's win was an opportunity to remind the world that the real unfinished business in British boxing still looms. The sharp insults, the dismissive tone, and the threats were not random. They were calculated. Fury understands attention as well as anyone in the sport, and he knows that every Joshua win reignites the same question fans have been asking for nearly a decade. When are these two finally going to fight? Joshua's response was just as deliberate. He did not chase Fury online with endless back and forth. Instead, he issued the simplest challenge possible. Stop talking. Step into the ring. Let fists decide what words never will. It was a challenge rooted in frustration, but also confidence. Joshua knows the clock is ticking. He knows legacies harden with time. And he knows that if this fight is going to mean what it should, it has to happen now, not as a nostalgic cash grab years down the line. The context makes the moment even heavier. Joshua was coming off a 15-month layoff, returning to the ring under massive scrutiny. A loss would have been catastrophic. A dull win would have been dissected. And yet, despite criticism of the early rounds, he did exactly what experience demands. He stayed patient. He avoided recklessness. He adapted. Jake Paul's movement, clinching, and evasive tactics slowed the pace, but they did not change the destination. Once Joshua found his range and began cutting the ring properly, the outcome became inevitable. Still, the reaction from the boxing community was far from unified. Many fans were dissatisfied, not because Joshua failed to win, but because the fight itself never felt like a true contest. Booing echoed through portions of the arena as Paul spent long stretches circling and avoiding engagement. Online, accusations of theater and circus behavior flooded timelines. For critics, this was the worst version of the outcome they wanted. Jake Paul lost, but not in a way that restored faith in the sport's purity. There was no sudden, iconic flattening. No single highlight replayed for years. Instead, there was a slow chase and an eventual stoppage that left viewers frustrated rather than exhilarated. Joshua himself did not hide from that criticism. He admitted the performance was not perfect. He acknowledged that expectations inside his own camp were higher for the early rounds. But he also made something clear. Boxing is not about aesthetics when the stakes are real. It is about control, damage, and results. Against an opponent whose entire strategy was survival, rushing recklessly would have been foolish. The sixth-round knockout was proof not of hesitation, but of adaptation. Veterans of the sport weighed in with more nuance. Some emphasized how difficult it is to pin down an opponent who refuses to stand their ground. Others pointed to Joshua's long absence and the need to shake off rust in a live environment. The common thread among those voices was simple. Anyone demanding an instant knockout misunderstands boxing at the elite level. Heavyweights are not machines. They are tacticians balancing risk and reward with every step. Jake Paul's performance itself became a Rorschach test for the sport. To some, surviving 6 rounds was a sign of growth and courage. To others, it was evidence that the bar for praise had been lowered dangerously. Paul trained seriously. He took professional camps. He promoted himself as a real boxer. That cuts both ways. You cannot ask to be taken seriously and then retreat behind the YouTuber label when exposed by elite competition. At this level, survival is not victory. It is simply delay. Where there was broader agreement was on what comes next. Heavyweight is not Jake Paul's future. The size, power, and experience gap are too severe. Cruiserweight, where opponents match his physical frame more closely, offers a far clearer test of his actual ability. If respect is the goal, that path requires careful matchmaking, real contenders, and a willingness to risk more than just durability. Without that, debates about his legitimacy will never end. Meanwhile, Joshua's future is crowded with possibility. A warm-up is behind him. Confidence is restored. The options ahead are stark. Chase a third world title through risky mandatory paths, or finally collide with Tyson Fury in a fight that transcends belts entirely. Promoters insist it must happen. Fans demand it. Even skeptics admit that no other matchup carries the same weight. Styles, personalities, and history collide in a way boxing rarely sees anymore. Fury's retirement talk only adds fuel. Few believe it fully. Fewer still believe he will stay away if the right deal materializes. Joshua sees that opening. He knows that even if Fury wavers, the pressure will not stop. Every interview, every appearance, every performance drags the question back into the spotlight. And Joshua, for all the noise, appears ready to answer it with action rather than rhetoric. This fight, for all its flaws, clarified something essential. Boxing cannot escape its hierarchy. Marketing can create moments, but it cannot erase reality. When elite experience meets ambition without equivalent seasoning, the outcome will always tilt one way. The sports challenge now is deciding how much spectacle it is willing to tolerate before credibility erodes. So now the conversation shifts to you. Was this fight a necessary reminder of boxing's brutal truth? Or did it expose how far spectacle has crept into the sport's core? Did Anthony Joshua do exactly what he needed to do? Or should the performance have been more emphatic? And most importantly, do you believe we will finally see Joshua and Fury settle this rivalry in the ring? Or will it remain boxing's greatest what-if? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you want more deep, story-driven breakdowns like this, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for what comes next.